This is Citizen Weekend with Olive Barrows.
How did he do it, and what do we as a country stand to gain or lose as a result of a Donald Trump presidency? Despite all the odds and predictions that it would be a tight race, neck and neck, knife's edge, the adjectives abound. It was not a photo finish after all. Donald Trump painted the U.S. map red, claiming all 7 swing states. He spoke, according to President William Ruto's post on social media. He did speak to William Ruto on the Haiti mission. What will a Donald Trump presidency mean for Kenya's foreign policy? I'll be joined by Dr. Tom Wolf, a research consultant, who will tell us why the pollsters off the mark. The same happened in 2016. 2020, it was closer than anticipated. And this time round, well, let's just say it was not neck and neck. And we will have in studio Professor Ambassador Maria Nzomo, and she'll be speaking to the foreign policy impact of his presidency. She is a Professor Emeritus, International Relations, Diplomacy and Governance. We get on into all of that in the course of this news hour. But before then, the highlights.
Mkulima anatarajia kuuza shilingi 5,500 kwa kilo 90 ndio aweze kupata faida kwa kazi yake. Lakini kwa sasa tunauza kwa bei ya shilingi 2,700 kwa kunia kilo 90.
Farmers in Trans Nzoia object to proposed government prices for maize as fears crop up about what to do with the anticipated large harvest.
Why should languages be a barrier in the continent? Oh, this one is an Anglophone, this one is Francophone.
We cannot develop without peace. Raila Odinga calls for silencing of the guns as he expounds on his vision for Africa in AUC chairmanship bid.
Many schools will not have met the timelines of preparing classrooms for grade 9.
Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers wants junior secondary domiciled in secondary schools.
Yani alikuwa anakaa hali mbaya, ni uchungu kabisa. Huyo mama alikufa kifo mbaya, hata sijawahi kuona kwa umri wangu niko naye.
No longer at peace. Elderly women in Butula, Busia, living in fear as group of young men targets them in robbery and rape incidents. I am in the esteemed company of Yula Nzale, our sign language interpreter. Farmers in Trans Nzoia County have rejected the government's offer to buy maize from them at 3,500 shillings per 90-kilogram bags. The farmers whose maize in the fields is ripe for harvest are protesting the low prices offered by government and want the government to increase the budget allocated to buy maize from them. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Dr. Andrew Karanja last week announced that the government will purchase 1 million bags of maize at 3,500 Kenya shillings per 90-kilogram bag to bolster Kenya's national food reserves.
The sight of maize in farms is ordinarily a beautiful thing, and especially for farmers. However, this bumper harvest is a sore sight for farmers in Trans Nzoia and other food-producing regions. The announcement by the government that the National Cereals and Produce Board will commence buying maize from them at a price of 3,500 shillings per bag is not regarded as good news by the farmers, who term the proposed price an insult to their labor.
Mkulima anatarajia kuuza shilingi 5,500 kwa kilo 90 ndio aweze kupata faida kwa kazi yake. Lakini kwa sasa tunauza kwa bei ya shilingi 2,700 kwa kunia kilo 90. Kuchelewa kufunguliwa kwa National Cereals and Produce Board imechangia sana kwa bei ya mahindi kurudi chini, kwa sababu hakuna control. Hii makateli ndio wanafaidika kwa mahindi ya mkulima.
Last week, Agriculture CS Dr. Andrew Karanja issued a circular announcing that the government intends to buy 1 million bags of maize from farmers to bolster the national strategic food reserves, which are currently at 30%. By admission, the government projects maize production for the 2024 long rain season to surpass 42 million 90 kg bags of the grain. Farmers and stakeholders have questioned the government's rationale to buy only 1 million bags from them, sparking widespread concern over the fate of the surplus, which experts warn may result in harvest losses and affect the country's food security in the coming days.
Production ya mahindi hapa sisi ndo tunaongoza Kenya nzima. Mwaka huu tunatarajia bamba harvest ya over 7 million bags of 90 kgs.
Trans Nzoia inajulikana kama mahali ambapo ile staple food ambayo Wakenya wanakula ambayo ni mahindi inatoka. National government iko na majukumu mawili muhimu. Ni kuhakikisha kwamba soko ya nafaka, soko ya cereals, soko ya mahindi ikuwe stabilized ili mkulima apate mapato ambayo yanastahili.
The proposed purchase price reflects a notable reduction from earlier rates, which stood at 4,000 earlier in the year and has reignited farmers' concerns about the profitability of maize farming, with prices dropping to between 2,200 and 2,700 in some regions. The farmers demanding that the government reconsiders the buying price and raises it.
Sisi kama wakulima, wakati ya kulima tuko na changamoto, wakati ya kupanda tuko na changamoto, wakati ya kuuza tuko na changamoto. Sasa wakulima wakifa moyo kusumbuliwa wakati ya kupanda na wakati ya kuuza, watawacha kulima mahindi. Na hiyo italeta shida kwa sababu mahindi ndio stable food yetu hapa Kenya.
However, Agriculture PS Dr. Kiprono Rono has justified the government's decision, saying subsidized fertilizer prices have greatly reduced production cost for farmers, adding that it is a free market and farmers are free to sell their produce to whoever they want.
The farmers this time around are getting better profits and better returns to around 1,000 shillings by 90 kilogram back to produce. And therefore, based on that, the government arrived at a price of 3,500. We also encourage other millers and encourage the farmers also to sell their produce also to other markets.
Data released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicates that the price of 2 kilogram maize flour dropped by 1.7%, while sifted maize flour dipped by 1.8% in October. Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
Kenya's candidate for the Africa Union Commission chairmanship, Raila Odinga, wrapped up his 2 days open forum campaign at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa. And as you'll hear now from Seth Olale from Addis Ababa, the former AU High Representative for Infrastructure Development said he will intensify his campaigns using a vigorous shuttle diplomacy program in the remaining 3 months to the AUC chairmanship election.
The former premier spent his second day of campaigning in Addis Ababa, engaging journalists drawn from the continent and beyond. In his opening statement, Kenya's Africa Union Commission chairperson candidate outlining the challenges facing the continent and how he plans to resolve them should he win the February polls.
That African people can be treated as equal citizens of this globe. As you know, it came against the background of colonial domination of the continent. It raised the consciousness of African people to fight for their liberation.
The former premier stating that he intends to intensify his campaigns by using a non-stop shuttle diplomacy program with less than 90 days to the AUC chairmanship election.
A little more push, I'm sure that there should be renewed diplomatic entries or into countries. Individual meetings with these presidents will count for much to ensure that we don't have, remember in gerrymandering or lobbying at the last minute also plays for a lot. In the union elections that I've seen previously, even when Musa Faki was elected, you have a lot of push and pull from the side.
Raila says his campaign strategy is on course and that he will be heavily depending on his rich Pan-Africanism background, in a bid to steer the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa.
Because of history, we don't want to repeat the mistakes which you have made in the past. We want to use it to inform what we want to do going forward.
Kenya's candidate will return to the AU headquarters in December for the aspirants' Mjadala debate. From the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Raila's next move will be embarking on a back-to-back shuttle diplomacy in the coming months. All this in a bid to become the 5th chair of the African Union Commission and succeed the incumbent and outgoing Moussa Faki. Seth Olale, Citizen TV, at the African Union headquarters, Addis Ababa.
In the meantime, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki met and held bilateral talks with newly inaugurated President of Botswana, Duma Gideon Boko. During the talks in Gaborone, Kindiki pitched for Kenya's candidate in the Africa Union Commission chairmanship race, Raila Odinga, and formally submitted President William Ruto's request for support from his Botswana counterpart. Ruto, through his deputy, termed Odinga a consummate African statesman whose experience in leadership would help propel and position the African continent on the global map on issues of development, trade, peace and security, climate change and economic transformation.
Even as we look at complex security threats like terrorism and organized crime, climate change is no longer in the view of President Ruto. It's no longer food security, agriculture, humanitarian matter. It is it's a national security, international security problem which can pose even existential threats.
And how we can work together. And it now remains for us to get down to doing what has to be done in the shortest possible time, so that we don't just operate at the level of rhetoric. We need to get some actions.
Other than Raila Odinga, who is Kenya's candidate, the race for the African Union Commission chairmanship has attracted candidates from Djibouti, Mauritania and Madagascar, who all seek to succeed Moussa Faki, whose 8-year stint expires in February 2025. Odinga, like Ambassador Amina Mohamed, Kenya's candidate in 2017, faces stiff competition from the trio from Djibouti, Mauritania and Madagascar, whose decorated careers may prove a test for him and Kenya. Ayub Abdikadir profiles the other candidates and the structure of the African Union Commission following the introduction of regional allocation of portfolios.
Odinga's bid for the continental job will involve intense diplomatic maneuvering in a landscape replete with geopolitical complexities, which the Kenyan candidate is alive to, following Ambassador Amina Mohamed's fall in 2017. He seeks the continental job against 3 other candidates whose credentials could inform Kenya's campaigns across the continent. The former Prime Minister faces Djibouti's topmost diplomat Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, former Mauritius Foreign Affairs Minister Senior Counsel Anil Gayan, and Madagascar's former Foreign Affairs Minister James Randriamandrato. Djibouti's Yusuf, a career civil servant with 19 years of experience as Foreign Affairs Minister, speaks fluent Somali, English, French and Arabic, and can appeal, according to commentators, to Francophone and Anglophone Africa, as well as Arab countries in North Africa. Odinga also faces competition from Anil Gayan from Mauritius, a senior counsel and a member of the bar in Mauritius and that of England and Wales. He has over 40 years of experience in international diplomacy, governance and legal affairs, and has also held important portfolios, including foreign affairs, tourism and health. He also represented Mauritius at the United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea, also known as UNCLOS, contributing to the development and adoption of the convention. Madagascar's James Randriamandrato, who was endorsed by his government, served as his country's foreign affairs minister for 7 months before his dismissal in October 2022. This after voting in favor of a UN resolution that condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, his government accusing him of violating its neutrality stance. Prior to that, Randria Mandrato served as finance minister between 2019 and 2021. The election scheduled for February 2025 will be preceded by the Mjadala Africa debate that will be televised live from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for audiences across the continent. The election process will be based on the principle of interregional rotation, which dictates that the Eastern region submits both male and female candidates for the role of chairperson, the Northern region to submit both male and female candidates for the role of deputy chairperson, and the remaining 3 regions of Central, Southern and Western Africa regions to submit at least 2 candidates, 1 male and a female, for the 6 portfolios of commissioners. The Assembly of Heads of State and Government elects the chairperson and the deputy chairperson. It's a roadmap filled with diplomatic uncertainties, and Odinga, with the support of his biggest backer, President William Ruto, hopes to achieve what Kenya's candidate Ambassador Amina Mohamed could not in 2017, slightly more than 80 days before polls. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV.
Wiper Democratic Movement party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has sharply criticized the government for its failure to take responsibility for the abductions and disappearances of Gen Z protesters in the course of the anti-finance bill protests. He accused the government of engaging in unlawful acts, including abductions, and called on former allies currently engaged in government to distance themselves from the Kenya Kwanza administration, describing it as a sinking ship. Milito Letenges has more.
The burial of Eliud Marende, father of former National Assembly Speaker Kenneth Marende, brought together former opposition allies, some of whom have since joined the broad-based Kenya Kwanza-led government. Opposition leaders, led by Kalonzo Musyoka, criticized the government, accusing it of covering up abductions and other human rights violations.
Jameni, mnataka tuamini Bwana Kanja kwamba ati watu bado wanajificha na wanajua haki yao ya kikatiba. Ni vizuri tuambiwe ukweli, kama watoto pia waliuawa kwa mikono ya polisi. Tunataka na sio Kenya, dunia nzima.
Kalonzo's remarks came a day after a phone call between U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and President William Ruto, in which Blinken urged the Kenyan government to ensure accountability on the part of security agencies in cases of abductions and missing persons.
Kwa hivyo mimi sitaenda njia ya rafiki zangu hao. Hata kama tutabaki wachache namna gani, hao ndio tutakomboa Kenya hii nao.
Kuna wenzetu ambao wako kwa hiyo serikali. Ndugu yetu Oparanya, ukiwa hapo, tafadhali mwambie Zakayo hawa wa Kenya wamefinywa, asidhubutu kuongeza ushuru ama kurudisha Finance Bill 2023.
Leaders in the broad-based government dismissed the opposition's criticism, labeling it as a case of sour grapes.
Sasa mimi nimeweka peremende kwa mdomo, sasa niwe napiga kelele ya nini? Tulikula peremende. Hiyo peremende nilipatia watu wangu kidogo pia wakule peremende, si ndio? Hiyo ndio mambo. Watu wanaona wanaongea hapa wako kwa tabu kubwa. Na hiyo ndio ukweli wa watu wanateseka. Unajua mimi ndio nakaa nao karibu. Nikikaa nao karibu wanasema Oparanya afadhali wewe. Sasa sisi tuko kwa tabu.
Ni ukweli watu hawapendi Ruto. Lakini watu ambao wanatembea hapa wameongozwa na Kalonzo, ndio wanaweza toa Ruto kwa kiti, tusemane ukweli bwana. Let's be serious. Ndio watatoa Ruto kwa kiti hawa. It is true watu hawapendi hiyo jamaa.
Political leaders from the Mulembe Nation are calling for a united Luhya front, insisting that it is time to put an end to divisions and present a cohesive political force ahead of the 2027 elections. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
Just a quick clarification. The race for the AUC chairmanship position is between Kenya, Djibouti, Mauritius and Madagascar. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, wants the government to reconsider its decision on junior secondary and domicile it in secondary rather than primary schools. The union says the move will help in addressing the lack of infrastructure and staff. As you'll hear now from Francis Ntalaki, who reports from Mombasa, the union is also pushing for consolidation of all education funds to offer free education and curb corruption in the education sector.
When my work becomes difficult.
2 years after the junior secondary school program was rolled out by the government, the controversy surrounding its implementation persists. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, wants the government to domicile JSS in secondary schools and not in primary schools as earlier directed. KUPPET says it is not too late to avert a crisis come January 2025.
We know very well that many schools will not have met the timelines of preparing classrooms for grade 9.
Our appeal is consider relocating junior secondary to senior secondary to enable the learners not to waste their youthful years. Because there, they would not be struggling with building additional classes and laboratories. They would just be topping up the members of staff. So the problem would be lesser for the government. And there's still room and there's still time to correct it.
KUPPET says there is lack of preparedness and it's difficult to realize JSS education in primary schools, insisting that grade 9 learners are at an adolescent stage and this might contribute to unethical behaviors in schools in the near future.
Grade 9 are adolescents and primary level is up to grade 6. You discover you have an adolescent in a school with very young girls and boys, and with the current kind of immorality we see in the society, we are just staring at danger.
Because other than the classes which have increased in primary, the numbers are also there. And then the issue is not the walls. Teachers can teach anywhere, even under trees. That's what it is. But now, are we resourced adequately? Do we have science equipment to deal with the issues of the learning areas which we have?
Speaking in Mombasa, KUPPET has also fought the cost of a classroom in public schools, saying the education sector is steeped in corruption.
If you have a private school, you can construct a classroom with not more than 600,000. But when it comes to the government, it comes to about 1.3 million. So that is almost double.
With 6,000 classrooms expected to be constructed under the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, the union is proposing consolidation of all funds and bursaries into one basket, saying the move will allow the government to deliver free education from primary school level to university.
That money is enough even to give teachers increment of more than 40%. But because of theft in the industry, members of parliament, even the current move to construct classes is only meant to create money for some members of parliament.
Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos says the government is committed to deliver the 16,000 classrooms by December 15th. Francis Ntalaki, Citizen TV, Mombasa.
Elderly women in Butula, Busia County, are living in fear of being sexually attacked and killed by a section of the community's youth. At least 3 women, all aged over 90, have been raped and killed in the area this year, while scores others are nursing injuries from trauma sustained in these sexual assaults. Brenda Wanga reports on the worrying trend that has grandmothers seeking extra security.
Growing old is usually revered in many African communities. In parts of Busia County, however, the sunset tears for many of the women come with a sense of anxiety and uncertainty. In this village in Butula, these old women are afraid of their safety and of their very lives. The grave of the late Dolphina Imbai bears witness to a worrying trend here. She died and was interred in September this year. Before her death, Imbai went a traumatic event that turned fatal.
Yani alikuwa anakaa hali mbaya, ni uchungu kabisa. ni uchungu kabisa. Huyo mama alikufa kifo mbaya hata sijawahi kuona kwa ile umri wangu niko naye.
Dolphina was attacked in her house where she lived alone. Her attacker also sexually assaulted her. She died of her injuries. The autopsy reports confirmed that the 96-year-old woman had not just been raped, but had also been strangled.
Mwili ulipofanywa postmortem ikapatikana kwamba mama alirepiwa, mama alinyongwa, akavunjwa iko, na hiyo kufungwa pia hakuweza kupumua.
Dolphina is one of several elderly women who have died after being raped in this area. Other women are still living with the trauma of nearly similar sexual attacks. We meet Agnes, not her real name. She recalls that encounter that nearly took her life. She says her attacker approached her house in the midst of a downpour as she prepared vegetables for her supper.
He saw me cutting some cabbages. The jiko was also burning. He removed all his clothes and stood before me naked and told me he wanted to have sex with me. I was shocked. He jumped on me and I fell on the floor. He then assaulted me. It was painful.
Joyce, not her real name, is 96 years of age. She too survived a sexual assault not too long ago. In a nearly similar manner, she was attacked in her house. Another elderly lady, whom we shall call Lydia, aged 94, is also a survivor of a sexual attack.
Alivamia mimi. Nakamata kozi kabisa. Sasa nguvu zilikuisha. Narutusa fahamu. Nifikiri silikuwa na mtu kwa nyumba hii. Naamuka. Naenda kuita mtoto wangu.
The young man entered my house and attacked me. I tried to scream, but he will not listen. He was strangling me. He raped me 3 times before my grandchild came to my rescue. They found him still in the act. He ran off.
It is believed that the women are vulnerable to these attacks due to the fact that majority of them live alone.
Na inajulikana ya kwamba wanawake wakongwe huwa wafungi milango kwa ile njia ya kawaida. Mara mingi wanatumia kijiti ama chuma kuingiza kwa shimo ambayo yuko kwa mlango, ambapo mtu akitoka nje anaingiza mkono anaweza kufungua.
These incidences have left the elderly members of society living on the edge, with other community members also demanding for action from the authorities.
Visa vimekuwa vya kusikitisha sana kwetu sisi kama watu wa eneo hili la Butula, na ningependa kusema ya kwamba labda katika maisha yetu tumeweza kukosa kuwapa mwelekeo ulio mwema.
The community here is blaming the authorities for not reining in drug abuse that they believe is the driving force behind these attacks.
Vijana vidogo wanafanya hiyo maneno ni banki. Banki ndio anafuta nyingi. Hiyo ndio inaweza letea hao vijana wafanye kitu kama hiyo.
Wakati mwanamke mkongwe anabakwa, unapata jamii wanamwambia asiende kushtaki kwa sababu italeta aibu.
The elderly in Butula are now beseeching the government to move with speed and guarantee their safety so that they can enjoy the last of their days in relative peace. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
A deeply troubling report there. Relatives and friends of slain Wells Fargo HR manager Willis Ayeko have called for thorough investigations into his murder, dispelling claims that he was killed during a robbery. Mourners who attended the burial in Siaya County accused security agencies of laxity, citing the recent murders reported over the last few weeks. As you'll hear now from Laura Otieno, Ayeko was showered with glowing tributes for his generosity and love of his family and friends.
Hundreds of mourners today thronged Ong'yende in Alego, Siaya County to pay their last respects to slain Wells Fargo manager Willis Ayeko. Family and friends eulogized Ayeko for his strong sense of community and dedication to his family.
You made family and friends feel very welcomed in our home, and several of my nieces and nephews from both sides passed by home. So you were patient, kind, and a very respectable person.
He loved us as sisters. And I'm so happy because he got the best. So anytime we were doing graduation, we were doing wedding, we were giving him the best.
Further, those present, including leaders from the political divide, decried the rampant insecurity witnessed in the country, accusing investigative agencies of laxity in unearthing the motive behind Ayeko's murder.
Must express our displeasure at some of the abductions almost enjoyed by the police. They are the ones giving the Kenyans confidence that you can abduct and get away with it. So we don't accept theories, like you say. We don't want theories about Ayeko's death. We want the person who killed Ayeko, not those ones who are sent.
The absence of security is either committed by the security forces or tolerated by the security forces. We want to urge that the security forces must pull up their socks. The patterns in terms of killings are not ordinary.
Willis Ayeko is survived by a widow and 2 children. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Safaricom, the region's leading technology company in partnership with Royal Media Services, has officially launched a 5-week tour across various regions in the country to celebrate its 24 years of service in Kenya and its annual festive campaign dubbed Safaricom Sambaza Furaha. This initiative will reward and celebrate customers nationwide. The tour kicked off in Kiambu, where some Kenyans won various prizes. Willie Lusige got to experience it firsthand and filed this report.
Residents of Kiambu County gathered at Ndumberi Primary School grounds to celebrate 24 years since the telecommunication company Safaricom began offering services in Kenya.
Safaricom turned 24 in October. So today we are here to break bread with our customers, to show them and return the loyalty that they've shown us.
Cheers and applause filled the air at the launch of the 5-week tour, during which the company, in partnership with Royal Media, will visit different regions in the country to reward Kenyans.
And to kick off that campaign of our 25th year, we have decided to travel around the country, spreading joy, giving delight, so we will be all around the country.
The 5-week campaign aims to share festive happiness by rewarding customers with surprise gifts, spreading seasonal blessings, and sharing joy as Safaricom marks 24 years of transforming lives.
Nimepewa t-shirt na apron ya kazi, so nitakuwa naona Safaricom kwa nyumba na ndani naitumia. Niko na furaha sana kwa Safaricom, nimefurahia wamenipea sikukuu.
Safaricom reassured customers that their data is secure and not at risk of misuse, encouraging them to feel confident in the safety of their data as they continue using Safaricom services.
One thing they can get from us is the assurance that we put their privacy first. We assure them and we commit to deliver reliability, to deliver always on and secure services.
Next week, the tour will head to the Rift Valley region before moving on to other areas in the following weeks.
So please come to our caravans. There will be medical camps. We know there are Kenyans around the country who need care, so come and be taken care of. But it's just about us saying thank you and spreading the joy to the Kenyans. It's been a tough year.
Safaricom began offering its services in Kenya on October 23rd, 2000. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
On the other side of this break, I'll be joined as promised by Dr. Tom Wolf, research consultant, and Professor Ambassador Maria Nzomo, Professor of International Relations, Diplomacy and Governance, and we'll be taking a closer look at the just concluded U.S. presidential elections.